into authentic conversations about ourselves and our community, exploring topics that uplift and inspire us. From personal growth to social change. So grab your teacup and get ready to join the conversation.
Court expected to take up the matter Tuesday after prosecutors have had a chance to file their response.
All right. While ABC is paying some bills, I want to thank all of the chatters, sippers, for being here with me. We're going to do an up late night on Diddy recap. Day 15 to current, okay? Day 15 to current. Remember when you come into the room to lift your teacups up so they can be filled up with this tea. As you do that, remember to like and subscribe. Thank you guys for sipping some tea with Tanisha Talks Teas. We're all Diddy tonight. Everything Diddy.
Do whatever you want to do.
Today, jurors hearing more voice notes like this one introduced last week between Combs and an ex-girlfriend testifying under the name Jane after Ventura filed that explosive November 2023 lawsuit. Jane reading text messages she sent to Combs. One saying, "I'm just so triggered by this. Please stop drugging and using women for your fetish nights. Leave women alone who don't want to do those nights with you. Hire prostitutes." In one call, Combs is overheard saying, "Baby, I'm sorry you feel this way. You know I can't really talk on these phones. It's just some kinky expletive that I thought we both enjoyed." Jane telling the court, "He was trying to warp my reality again, and I was just trying to stay strong. Every time I tried to speak my truth, Sean would just say it wasn't this, it wasn't that. And that I was just so overwhelmed with the evil of everything. It was just this time that was very, very evil and dark." Now, Jane's testimony again has concluded for today. She will go under cross-examination tomorrow morning. She did testify that after Cassie Ventura's lawsuit, that in June 2024, she exploded on Sean Combs. She attacked him, that she slammed his head into a desk, a table, but it did not end their relationship. She says he still pays her rent, and he is currently paying for her attorney, but they have not had any real contact since his arrest.
Our thanks to Darla Miles, joined now by ABC News legal contributor Bernarda Villaluna. I mean, that right there is wild to hear when you think about all the testimony that she's already given, talking about Jane, that Sean Combs is still paying her rent and paying her attorney fees.
Yes.
What do you make of that?
There were some tremendous bombshell moments today. I think today was a better day for the prosecution than Friday and then Thursday, because there were some surprises that we weren't ready for, that we didn't hear during opening statements. So the jury's hearing for the first time, wait, he's paying your rent, but aside from that, still paying your rent. But aside from that, paying your attorney's fees, and not attorney's fees for her to file a civil lawsuit against Sean Diddy Combs. Instead, the attorney's fees, because when they executed a search warrant at the homes of Sean Combs, HSI, Homeland Security, forgot what's the name of that, what the initials stand for, had gone to her house and left a card there. She immediately called Sean Combs and let them know that they had gone to her house. So she had an attorney that was provided to her by Sean Combs. Got rid of that attorney. Sean Combs provided another attorney, and she still keeps that same attorney to this day while she's testifying. In fact, when she's on the stand, there's attorneys in the courtroom for her.
So if you're a juror, how do you place that in this whole twisted tale here?
So it looks bad for Sean Combs, because why are you paying for an attorney and she's the victim, and you know that she's the victim, labeled victim in this case? It's more of for you to have control of what her testimony would be, and also for you to know what her testimony is, because I believe that it was just in April that she met with these attorneys. So by her meeting with these attorneys, and Sean Combs' team know what she's going to testify to, but keep a control over her. So it doesn't look good.
We heard from Sean Combs on this audio recording today. How did that play with the jury?
Many audio recordings. There were a few audio recordings that were played today in front of this jury. And two of the primary audio recordings came after Cassie's lawsuit was filed. And those audio recordings were done without the knowledge of Jane. Jane didn't know she was being recorded. And in one of those audio recordings where Sean Combs is talking to Jane, Sean Combs is trying to tell her, oh, this is just our relationship. This was just some kinky stuff that we got into, right? And you could hear Sean Combs with the Sharpie taking notes. And what's more revealing is that where they found this recording. It was found on KK's cell phone that they executed a search warrant on. So again, the mix that the fix is in between Sean Combs, KK, and they were trying to cover their tracks because Cassie's lawsuit had filed, and now they were trying to see whether they can gain control of Jane doing this criminal prosecution that they saw was coming.
Remind our audience again, who's KK?
So KK is the assistant, the former chief of staff of Sean Combs. So her, like what Jane said today, KK was his right woman in the sense of she managed everything having to deal with Sean Combs.
And the lawsuit that you referred to was Cassie Ventura's civil lawsuit against Sean Combs.
Civil lawsuit, yes.
Which is kind of the first that we heard about all of these allegations. And this is coming on the heels of that video of the LA beating back in 2016 that was released, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so as you're sitting there in court today, how is the jury taking notes? What was the feeling inside?
Yes. So now for today, now the press got a chance where they switched our side. So now we're sitting on the left-hand side of the courtroom, which gives us a full view of all the jurors now, because where we were sitting before, we only got a view of a few of the jurors. So in terms of when that audio was played, when they found out about that Sean Combs was paying for Jane's attorney, like I'm writing in my notes because I'm looking at the jurors, because now they're taking notes. Because at times they had stopped taking notes and it was a big concern. I'm like, why aren't they taking any more notes? But now when the recording started playing, they were back to taking enormous notes really fast, paying attention, looking at these messages and looking at Sean Combs to see what he's doing. Because aside from those two audio recordings that Jane didn't know about, also what was played was, remember, Sean Combs' apology video having to deal with the release of that assault that he did on Cassie in Los Angeles.
And so when jurors are in there taking notes and you're hearing Jane, I know last week it seemed like a very difficult process for her to relive some of these stories.
And today was the same thing. She is crying the majority of time doing her testimony. So you have to think that when you're reading the testimony and you're hearing people talk about the testimony, is different from when you see her in the courtroom, because she's very soft-spoken. She is looking down at all times, even though the prosecutor is asking her questions. She's not making eye contact. And literally, I feel like she's crying like almost every 15 minutes or so as she's reliving this, because you can clearly see that she is still now trying to grasp what happened to her. That's why after the release of Cassie's lawsuit, when she filed it, was a reflection point at that time for her, that she said 3 pages mirrored exactly what I've been going through with you and what I've been trying to tell you, but you've been gaslighting me this entire time.
And so when you heard the audio from Sean Combs, and then I guess did you hear Jane on the audio too? Or,
yes.
Okay, so then you hear. So what was the tone of those conversations?
So, Mike, interesting enough, we had this conversation that is Jane, is it a performance in this courtroom where she's talking low and she's crying? Not at all, Mike, because those 2 audio recordings, she's speaking in the very same manner. In fact, she's crying on those audio recordings. So now the jury has this comparison of, look, she didn't know she was being recorded, and look how she's talking to Sean Combs.
In real time.
Oh, Sean Combs is talking to her. Let's just put it like that, because you could tell that he is the main aggressor, the one with the power, the one who's telling her how things should go. And she's talking very low, and she's crying through the conversation. And at one point, doing one of those audio recordings, when he's trying to tell her, oh no, this is just some kinky thing that we do, this is our relationship,
the freak offs, the hotel nights.
Yeah, the hotel nights. She's like, no, that's not how I see it, how I interpret it. And Sean Combs is reminding her, like, look, we can't be talking on the phone. This is before there's even a criminal prosecution. So I think what the jury's going to hear from the prosecution during closing arguments is that, look, Sean Combs was trying to clean up shop at this point. Now he's trying to gain a different type of control on Jane, because he doesn't want Jane to be out of pocket, in the sense of go to the prosecution and spill everything that's happened between the two of them.
How important, from an attorney's point of view, how important is it for, in a case where it seems like the defendant is not going to testify, how important is it to hear from?
Whether the grind is at work or your workout, grab Kind.
All right, we are late night up on the Diddy trial, day 15 to current. Thank you guys for sipping tea with Tanisha tonight. Remember, when you come into the room, lift your teacups up so they can be filled up with this tea on Diddy.
In their own words, and
like and subscribe.
To hear that audio.
So, Mike, this is what puts Sean Combs in a bad position. He's in a bad predicament now, because in normal cases, you won't hear anything from the defendant. You won't hear their text messages. You won't hear their audio recordings. You won't hear these voice notes. And here, the jury has heard all of those from the perspective of what the prosecution is putting before this jury. So now it's like the jury's not going to have an explanation from the defendant, and they'll be expecting an explanation. So now you're left in a predicament like, do I have to put Sean Combs on the stand to testify, to try to give an explanation or try to give context or try to fix what this jury has heard from the perspective of the prosecution? Because even if there's additional recordings, the defense, because of the rules of evidence, cannot put that forth in their own case. You can't put a client's statement before this jury for your own purposes. The prosecution is allowed to put it in, of course, because it's a statement against penal interest. It's an admission by the defendant, but the defense can't do that. So if they want to portray something that is said by the defendant, by Mr. Combs, they will have to put him up on the stand or get someone else to try to provide context if they can.
Finally, for this conversation tonight, what does the defense need to do, or how will they try to go at Jane to benefit their client, Sean Combs?
So the defense has already said that their cross-examination is going to last a few days. So expect the cross-examination to be on Tuesday, on Wednesday, and possibly also even the entire day on Thursday. So this is not going to be a quick cross-examination. The examination is going to have to be very meticulous, in the sense of you're dealing with someone that's on the stand that is very fragile, and that's going to be not confrontational, but probably crying, and in her mind just say that she wanted this love and how Sean Combs took advantage of her. So the defense is going to try to say, like, look, you wanted more of this relationship. You were the one who engaged in this. This was consensual. At no point did you say no, or when you said no, you went right back and agreed to arrange these hotel nights. In fact, you got two of the escorts or entertainers for these sex nights, but also try to make her as a money grab, that this is a money grab. You just wanted Sean Combs to pay your bills, to pay your rent, your $10,000. That's the only thing that you were fearing. You say that you can't walk away because, hey, I won't get my rent paid. Go somewhere else. Go get an apartment you can't afford.
We'll see how it all plays out. Bernarda, always great to have your perspective, especially being right there in court, seeing what's going on. Great to see you as always. Court resumes tomorrow morning. Stay with Eyewitness News and ABC 7NY for any new updates. By the way, we also have a real-time blog as well, following the details.
All right, this is everything on Diddy, day 15 to current. Remember, when you come into the room, to like and subscribe. We're going to keep it moving with more Diddy updates and stuff. Then we're also going to watch last week of TMZ, United States versus Diddy. Get some more perspectives on what people are suspecting too. happen, outcomes, all that good stuff on Diddy, y'all. We might have a late night. So y'all just continue to hang in here with Tanisha Talks. Remember, when you come to the room, your teacups up so you can have to deal with all this Diddy.
I'm Eva Pilgrim. Thanks for streaming with us. Week 5 of the Sean Diddy Combs trial kicking off with the hip-hop mogul's ex-girlfriend Jane back on the stand. She began tearing up, crying into a microphone at one point after testifying about a text she sent Combs after he allegedly requested a so-called hotel night. Jane replying, "I'm not a porn star. I'm not an animal. I need a break." Jane also describing for the jury what she saw as love bombing, something she said he would do when he wanted to watch her have sex with other men. Jane also telling the jury she almost fainted when she learned about Cassie Ventura's lawsuit against Combs, testifying it was like reading her own story. She testified she was with Combs the day that hotel surveillance video showing Combs attacking Cassie back in 2016 became public. Combs has pleaded not guilty to all allegations in the case. There's a lot to get to from court. Plus, the new evidence released, voice memos from Combs to Jane, played for the jury. You can hear them for yourself coming up. And a toxicologist breaks down all the drugs we've been hearing about during this trial. How can that affect a person's body? But first, let's get right to the federal courthouse. Aaron Katersky, our chief investigative correspondent, has been in court all day. Aaron, bring us up to speed. What did Jane say on the witness stand today?
Oh, she said a lot, Eva, and there were these long sequences of anguished text messages telling Sean Combs how she no longer wanted to perform in these so-called hotel nights with male prostitutes, and the what she described as dismissive nature of Combs' response. But there were a couple of notable things. One, I think you hit on. Jane says she was there at Combs' Miami home in May 2024 when the Cassie video first aired on CNN. And she said Combs even showed her a draft of the statement that he was going to post to Instagram apologizing for it. And the jury heard her say that she didn't think he was being genuine. When she later heard and saw that Instagram post, the defense objected. The judge instructed the jury to disregard that testimony. The other interesting thing, Eva, that Jane said on the witness stand is that Sean Combs is still not only just paying her rent, but also paying her legal bills. And his defense attorneys were the ones to whom she first disclosed that Sean Combs got violent with her in June 2024.
Okay, Cassie Ventura Combs' ex was not in court today, but her civil suit against Diddy came up today. Why was that?
Jane said she nearly fainted, and she said, in fact, maybe I did faint because it was like reading her own story, as she put it, her own sexual trauma. And she said she confronted Sean Combs about it, and he told her that that was the only time in his relationship with Cassie Ventura when there had been violence. Now, the jury has certainly heard differently, but then there's Jane at Sean Combs' house when the video comes out. And she says that Combs gives her the statement to read. She thought it was apologetic, appropriately so. But when she finally heard it, she just didn't think that it was enough.
And after that hotel video became public and Combs pledged to become a better man, what did Jane say happened?
That's when she said that Sean Combs got violent with her in June 2024. And she was frank with the jury. She started it. She was getting upset. She was sort of pent up with all this resentment and anger at being forced into these hotel nights, she said. And she and Combs were kind of going at it a little bit. He bent over to tie his shoe, and she said she smacked his head into the counter and took off. He followed, kicked down several doors. The jury saw photos of the damaged doors that she later sent to a repairman. And that's when eventually she ran outside. She says Combs picked her up by the neck and dragged her back into the house, dragged her by the arm and by the hair. And it's this kind of repetitive behavior, because the jury has previously heard about dragging from Cassie Ventura, that the prosecutors say proves the kind of racketeering offenses that Combs is charged with, that he's pleaded not guilty to. But generally, this is also, prosecutors say, evidence of sex trafficking by coercion. because it speaks to Jane's state of mind. She knew that Combs could be violent. She agreed to yet more hotel nights, perhaps under duress.
Jurors also had a chance to hear a voice recording on Friday that Sean Combs allegedly sent to Jane. What did he say in that recording?
This is all part of Sean Combs's responses to various text messages where Jane is almost pleading with him to let her stop having sex with all of these male escorts. At one point, she's telling him that she's tired, she needs a break. She's not a porn star. She's not an animal. She's sore. And the jury heard Combs's response, which Jane says she took as a threat. Have a listen.
Girl, I done sent you flowers already. Ain't nobody talking about past? That's what I'm talking about. You don't know how to just move on. How can somebody like have a relationship with you, even as a friend, and you don't know how to move on? You and like it just goes crazy. Just stop. I'm saying, let's move on. My tone is like this. I'm just waking up.
One of the reasons Jane said she took that as a threat is because he's talking about moving on, ending their relationship. Every time Jane said she would bring up to Sean Combs her reluctance to perform with male prostitutes, she said hovering over the conversation would be the fact that he's paying a $10,000 monthly rent check.
And Aaron, what was Combs's response listening to all of this in court today?
You know, his demeanor was a bit interesting today. He's listening carefully to all of this, especially some of the more recent messages, because more voice notes were played in court today, and his voice kind of echoes through the courtroom, which is otherwise silent. But he was sitting back from the defense table, had his legs stretched out, his arms kind of crossed like this, and we're not sure what the posture means, but it was a notable difference from the leaning forward at the table and listening intently to the speaker.
Aaron Katersky for us there at the courthouse. Aaron, thank you so much. Let's break down what we saw in court today. Joining me now, ABC News legal contributor and defense attorney Brian Buckmeyer. Brian, Jane back on the stand. What stood out to you today?
I mean, Aaron highlighted most of it, right? The fact that Sean Combs is still paying the $10,000, paying for her legal fund, the violence that we heard that she alleged that Sean Combs did in that what we might describe like mutual combat between the two of them, and also just how he started to hear evidence of close in time to Cassie's lawsuit, the close in time to the raid, and also him getting arrested, and how we're getting an inside view as to what Sean Combs was doing and how he reacted through Jane herself.
Let's talk about that lawsuit, Cassie Ventura's 2023 lawsuit against Combs. Why did this come up?
It came up because Jane described the moment in which she heard about the lawsuit, when she actually read the lawsuit herself as well. And she talked about taking a photo, or at least a screenshot, of 3 of the pages. Now, we don't know what all 3 of them were. I think the first one she said was the first page. But she said she was reading her own trauma. She started to see the dots connecting as to what she went through and what Cassie had went through beforehand. And she started sense of he knew what he was doing wrong. He understood these freak-offs, these debaucheries, these hotel nights were horrible, and the way he would love bomb and persuade women, because she said what happened to her, she believed also happened to Cassie.
The jury also got to hear a series of phone calls between Combs and Jane. Explain these to us.
So we heard phone calls, voice memos, or voice notes, because they'd be texting each other back and forth, saying, call me, or voice memo or note would be given. And it was a mixture of Sean Combs almost reassuring her that everything was going to be okay, something I believe that the government is going to try to use to say this is another form of control, but also talking about a relationship that I think the defense will hone in on and say, you know what, this seems like a man who's trying to rebuild a relationship, not someone who's sex trafficking. But of course, the November 19th date, very important, because this is 3 days after Cassie's lawsuit was filed, and these communications where we're seeing again how Sean Combs are reacting to the news of this new lawsuit, as well as the investigation coming after him.
Jane at one point today mentioned sex tapes that she didn't want other people to see, but she was worried about them. Why does this matter?
Coercion. It's the same thing we heard when it came to Cassie, where Sean Combs would say that he would release the sex tapes to her parents, sending it to their parents' job, or putting it out to the public, the fear of embarrassment. But with Jane, it was even more specific. It was that he threatened to send the sex tapes to the father of her child. And so you got to think about it, right? Single mother, maybe she could lose custody of the child, obviously being embarrassed by it, affect her financially. These are the harms and damages that the government's going to say Sean Combs was using to control her through coercion, to use the sex trafficking, to make out the RICO conspiracy and try to prove their case.
The day that a hotel attack video was released, Jane said she was with Combs. What did her memory of that day show?
Her memory was seeing the Combs family come together and try to figure out how to resolve this. Also, she said that she saw an earlier kind of draft of what was going to be said in response to this. And she said when the response did come out on social media, she said it didn't seem genuine, didn't seem authentic in terms of apology towards Cassie in that message.
Brian Buckmeyer, thank you for being with us. And throughout this trial, jurors have listened to graphic, detailed testimony about the alleged drug-fueled sex parties called freak-offs or hotel nights that prosecutors say Combs would host. Jurors were also shown images of the trove of drugs allegedly found in Combs' residence or hotels where these events happen, including a variety of pills, marijuana, powders, and other drugs that prosecutors alleged were used to make women compliant, allowing them to perform long past the point of exhaustion. Now, Combs has denied all charges. Joining me now to talk more about the actual impact these drugs have on the body is emergency medicine physician and medical toxicologist, Dr. Stephanie Widmer. You are not involved in this case, but I just want to ask you, Cassie Ventura and Jane, they both testified that Combs provided them with drugs like ecstasy, ketamine, cocaine, and GHB so they could stay awake for hours, even days. In your experience, when it comes to sexual assault cases, what drugs are particularly concerning? Walk us through the effects these drugs can have on the body.
So there are a number of drugs that were mentioned throughout the trial, and all of these drugs have different mechanisms of action. They have different effects on the human body. But at the end of the day, these are all drugs that can sort of alter somebody's sensorium, and they're all different types of psychoactive drugs. And when you're talking specifically about sexual assault, when someone takes these drugs, their ability to provide consent thereafter, this really becomes like kind of a key issue. In particular, drugs that cause sedation, or with reference to ketamine, which has been brought up a number of times throughout this trial, that can cause something called dissociation, which is sort of the feeling of being detached from one's body. Drugs like that can cause decreased sensation and altered level of consciousness. Those drugs are particularly concerning in cases of sexual assault.
Each of these drugs can be dangerous on their own, but what happens when you mix these drugs?
So mixing illicit substances on their own are certainly dangerous, but when you're mixing them, there's the potential of increasing toxicity. You can overwhelm the body's ability to process them. You can compound effects of certain drugs, making them more sedating. It can cause strain on the heart, dangerous heart rhythms, or swings in blood pressure, especially if they are drugs that oppose each other. It can slow or stop breathing, and really increase confusion or impairing judgment and memory. Overall, mixing illicit substances it's unpredictable. So everybody processes these drugs differently, but it's dangerous for anyone.
Dr. Stephanie Widmer, thank you so much for being with us. And for immediate substance abuse crisis, dial or text 988. For referral treatment, dial 1-800-662-HELP. Still ahead, we'll play more of those voice memos sent by Combs to Jane. Our legal analysts break down what he said and which side it helps. Welcome back. Week 5 of testimony in the Sean Diddy Combs case, delivering another day of gripping testimony from Combs' ex-girlfriend, Jane. Time to break down the legal strategies at play. Brian Buckmeyer is here as the defense, Bernarda Villalona analyzing the prosecution. Bernarda, prosecutors responded to the defense's motion for a mistrial. Was it strong enough to get the judge to rule in their favor?
The judge is going to rule in their favor. The reason being is that the alleged prosecutorial misconduct had to deal with possibly perjurious testimony, but there's conflicting testimony having to deal with the credibility of a witness. When you're dealing with the credibility of a witness, that is specifically the job of the jury to determine the credibility. So because it's having to deal something with facts specific, I think the judge is definitely going to deny the motion and say that, look, it's up to the jury to determine the credibility. No harm done here.
Brian?
I think for mistrials, you don't expect to win at the trial level. What you're really doing is you're setting up yourself for the appellate issue, right? And so we have to make the argument at the trial level so you can preserve that issue for the appellate, and also you collect more information as well as the case concludes and moves on. I do think this is more than just a competing information of what's true and what's not. Where was Sean Combs on September 26th of that year? I mean, that's easy. Someone at the DA's office, someone at the defense should have been doing the research to say, does this make sense based on what this witness is going to testify before she testifies? I think that someone at the DA's office or the government's office dropped the ball here and merely took her word and didn't say, he's a famous guy. We can maybe find out where he might have been to try to strengthen our case. And that might present an issue on appeal, but I don't think here.
Okay, let's play this recording. I want people to hear this. It was recording a voice memo from Combs to Jane. The jury got to hear this today. Take a listen.
Hey, I really don't know what's going on with you, but I just want to just give you a heads up that I'm about to really disappear on you. You feel me? I'm not going to be playing these games with you at all, at all. So I don't know. You think you silent treating me, and you think I'm going to be, nah. You'll have a rude awakening. You'll just have silence. And ain't nobody threatening you, and I ain't trying to go back and forth with no woman. You know what I'm saying? I'm telling you, I ain't got no time for games. Where my life is at right now, I don't have no time for no games, baby girl. Me and you can be mad, I can have a spat, we can have whatever. Then after that, you better get on your job. That's really, that's all it is. Cause you got me on my job. Nah, it ain't never gonna work like that over here. You know what I'm saying? I was trying not to leave this message, but you have left me no choice. So either you go in the direction of like moving on like that, or you like just like have me just keep moving. Ain't no threat. I'm just being clear. I can't with you every time you get upset.
The jury heard that on Friday. As the prosecutor, what are you hoping they take away from that?
You better get on your job. You better get on your job. And you know what that job was? For her to be a sex worker. That was her job. So here you have it coming out of the mouth of Sean Combs where he's telling her, get on your job. Just how I get on my job, you get on your job. So when I snap my fingers, perform.
I think that would make more sense for Cassie because Cassie was the only alleged victim here that said this was like a job. I haven't heard that language from Jane, so I don't think I would stretch it that far. I think if you're the defense, what you want this to look like is love me or leave me. Like, if you're going to be a part of my life in a relationship, then sure. But if you're going to get mad at me, I'm going to keep doing my thing. I'm going to keep doing my job. Because he's talking about her job, but also his job.
His job was paying her $10,000 a month, paying for her expenses, paying for the roof over her head. So he's saying, I'll disappear. So I'll disappear. Guess what? You're going to disappear out the apartment that I have you in that I'm paying the rent for.
I think that's a great argument. No one's testified to that. And I think on summation, yeah, go ahead and make that argument.
It's for summation.
The defense is going to make an argument of, you've all heard this before. This is when you're tired of arguing with your lover, your spouse, your significant other, and you say, let's just move our separate ways or try to make this work. It's not something nefarious. They're going to paint it in a different light.
Jane testified she was frustrated with the relationship with Combs, especially when she compared it to other women. Let's listen to another recording that was played on Friday.
Yeah, that's my friend. I'm in Miami. I don't have a lot of friends out here, okay? She asked me if she could work out with me. I said, okay. You got to believe what you want. It's the last time you go and cursing at me, disrespecting me over nothing. Like I'm a human being. I'm not gonna lock myself up in a room and have no friends. I don't have a bunch of guy friends. I already told you that. And she just came over to work out. Like, but I'm not gonna be explaining. It don't matter if I just got finished day. I'm single. I could do whatever I want to, but I didn't. You're straight flipping out on me, and I told you that you had one more time to do this. Flipping out on me because somebody came to work out with me at my house. You're nuts. So be sad, go crazy, do whatever you want to do. Okay, I don't deserve you. I don't deserve being honest with somebody. And then every time they see somebody around, they like, I I'm doing something, working out.
Brian, listening to that, what's your reaction to that message?
So as a defense attorney, okay, we're going to try to spin that as she's jealous. She's looking at his social media. He said in other comments that there's an open relationship. He's saying here that he's single. Now, maybe as a guy, he's trifling. Like he's gaslighting her. He's doing all the things a horrible guy friend, boyfriend will do. But both sides, as a guy and a defense attorney, none of those are criminal. He's a shady, horrible person. But you spin it both ways of he's treating a woman poorly or this isn't a crime.
Bernarda?
So here as prosecution, like I will argue the power that he had over her. So, but also in addition to that, Eva, what I'm trying to do is I'm putting your words out there. So I'm going to be able to argue it the way I want to argue it. So are you going to get up on the stand and try to explain something different? Because you're going to be confined to the words that are in that recording. So the jury is hearing from the defendant, from his own words, from text messages, from videos, from audio recordings, from recordings on voicemails.
But let's do this. You've been both a prosecutor, defense attorney, and dated in this world. Which one of those conversations does that sound more familiar to as? As someone who's dated maybe or heard of a horrible guy or of a criminal? Like what is that more familiar to as?
Well, the thing is you have to read all of it. You have to take everything.
When you listen
you have
to
to look
these
at the full picture.
voice memos, which side do you think it helps the most?
Well, the prosecution, because when you combine it with that she's on the stand, and remember, I'm in a main courtroom where she's testifying, she is talking so softly. She refuses to look up, even at the person that is asking her the questions, and she is crying like every 5 minutes. So when you combine him talking so aggressively to her in these voicemails, like to us, it'd be like, no, you ain't talking to me like that. But to a person that the jury is seeing, it's like, oh, wow.
Yeah, but they also heard that she started physical fights, smashed his head into a marble counter, punched him, threw wax and hot oil at him.
But
they heard that as well, so she's capable of that as well. And here's a guy saying, you saw me on social media with another woman. Let's not get crazy about this. I'm single. I can do what I want, but I'm telling you the truth. Again, that doesn't sound criminal. I think that rings truer in people's ear as something they've heard before of a trifling man.
But also, they're not looking at that testimony singularly. They're looking at the entire case. They're looking at the Cassie video. So they're listening to everything.
We got to go. But I appreciate the trifling man comment. Brian, Bernarda, thank you both. Coming up, week 5. But what are people and terms being searched for on the internet? We go through some of them when we come back. Welcome back to Burden of Proof, the case against Diddy. It's time now to take a look at some of the day's top online searches surrounding this high-profile criminal trial. The searches range from what does Diddy look like now to what is love bombing. ABC News contributor Kelly Carter joins us now from Los Angeles. She covers entertainment and pop culture for us. Let's get right to it then. That's an interesting search that we're hearing about. What does Diddy look like now?
Yeah, I think people want to know that because all we're seeing are the courtroom sketches. I think in most cases, with the exception of the anonymous witnesses, we get to see what they actually look like in person, do a compare contrast. That's impossible right now. No cameras in the courtroom. So
then there are people who are searching what is love bombing.
Love bombing, it's the bane of every woman's existence, I think. But really, it is a manipulative tactic that also is a form of emotional abuse. You know, someone kind of showering you with love to get you to do what they want you to do, essentially is what love bombing is.
Kelly Carter, always so lovely to talk to you. Thank you. And thank you for joining us. We'll be back with new episodes every day of the trial. The show streams right here on ABC.
All right, so we're getting into everything Diddy tonight. Y'all, if you heard me smacking, I was smacking on some potato chips. Grab your snack, get right back with your teacup up. Ready to get you to be filled by the Diddy trial, day 15 to current. We have got a lot of shit going on, y'all. We have got activated snitches and a whole lot of exposed testifying nymphomaniacs. Y'all, what is going on? Oh my God. So what do y'all think about the Jane Doe? Okay. I mean, I think she's just a little bit of a watered down Cassie. From what we've heard, she could be just as activated as Cassie was. you know, in her time she spent with Diddy. So far, we haven't gotten much, but we're gonna keep on with up-to-date stuff about Diddy. Okay.
Welcome back to Stephen A. Smith Show. Now let's get to the latest on the federal sex trafficking and racketeering trial of Sean Diddy Combs. A Diddy girlfriend, the latest, using the pseudonym Jane, was back to stand today. She described the drug-fueled sexual parties called hotel nights she endured during her relationship with Sean Diddy Combs. Jane says she felt pressure to have sex with other men. She also broke down and sobbed as she recalled getting to spend time alone with Combs afterwards. And just yesterday,
Y'all don't know why. But when you come in, lift your teacups up. We're sipping some tea from Stephen A. Smith. We already got
judge threatened to
our
exclude Combs from court if he kept trying to interact with the jury. Combs was seen nodding in the jury's direction during the testimony of a woman who said Combs dangled her over a balcony railing in 2016. During that testimony, it was revealed that Combs was actually in New York during the Bad Boy reunion tour at the time she claimed the incident happened. Joining me to discuss the latest in the Diddy trials is one of the best legal minds in America, as far as I'm concerned. A legal analyst extraordinaire for ABC News, obviously hosts SportsCenter on ESPN as well. My buddy, the one and only Ryan Smith. What's up, man? How are you?
Hey, man. Good to talk to you. How you doing?
Let's get right to it. I'm good, man. It's just that it's just crazy to me, all of this Diddy stuff. We just keep hearing more and more stuff. It's hard to listen to be honest with you. But what do you make of the testimony of the witness who says she was dangled over the balcony of her apartment? How incriminating is that again?
Yeah, Vanna, that's really important for the prosecution's case. Why? Even though she wasn't somebody who said she was assaulted by him sexually, this shows the violent tendencies that the prosecution is saying Diddy has. That this is what women were afraid of. That this is why he had this threat of violence held over people. Because when you look at it from the prosecution's eyes, if he could dangle somebody off a balcony, imagine what he might have threatened to do to Cassie if she didn't engage in the freak-offs, or to Jane with what she's talking about with the hotel nights. Showing that and showing what happened for the prosecution is like saying this is how dangerous this man is.
When the judge threatened to remove him and exclude him from trial because he thought his facial expressions and what have you were influencing the jury, how big of a deal is that, if it is a big deal at all?
Yeah, I think that's huge. Because if the jury walks in one day and they don't see Diddy there, they wonder why. And they can't necessarily be told why, or the judge will give them an instruction but won't maybe not tell them all the details. But it goes to, if you're on that jury, you're thinking, wait, why is there a change here? And any change, I think, in this case involving Diddy is bad for the defense. So with Diddy, the accusation is that he's nodding to the jury. And here's the thing. When you're a defendant, you cannot interact with the jury. Why? Because that makes it seem like you're trying to influence them in some way. Here's Diddy with this power. People know him. They know of him. And if he's looking straight at you, juror number 12, and he's nodding, don't believe that. I'm not saying I know that he did that per se, but when you talk about nodding for judges and for courtroom watchers, that's somebody trying to send an indication to somebody on the jury saying, believe this or don't believe this, which could influence their decision. So in a way, the judge has to clamp down on that immediately.
But damn, Ryan, I mean, he got to sit there for weeks. He can't smile, he can't smirk, he can't nod his head. I mean, for weeks at a time. Isn't that an impossible task to expect from a defendant, where you can't have any kind of bodily communication whatsoever, affirming or denying anything? Is that not a bit unreasonable?
it's reasonable to be able to have a reaction to things, but to be turning to the jury and reacting to them is borderline influencing them. And that's the last thing you want. You want these jurors to be able to make any decision they want to make based on the evidence they're hearing, not based on the defendant looking at them, telling them, believe that, don't believe that. The thing here is, Stephen A., we don't know exactly what he was doing in that courtroom. If he's turning and nodding and making indications to them, that's off limits. You can't do that. And before trial, his defense team would have told him, hey, you can't make statements or do things to the jury or have loud outbursts, because they know that the judge will clamp down because the judge doesn't want the jury being influenced. But having reactions, being upset or being mad or crying or scribbling a note to your lawyer, that kind of stuff is effective. Keep that, though, away from turning to the jury and trying to send an indication to them. And again, we don't know what Diddy was actually doing in that courtroom or what he might have been trying to do, but the judge has to look at that and say, any way in which you're reacting, turning to them and making a motion is potentially trying to say to them, don't believe this, believe that, and possibly influencing their decision. You can't have that.
My next question is going to be, just as a treat to throw out to Diddy supporters out there, because just like R. Kelly had his supporters, Diddy's got his, and you have a lot of people that's been listening to you and others talk about what's going on during this trial, reporting accurately on what's actually transpiring in the courtroom and in the case itself. It says, damn, everybody's pointing the finger at Diddy. I mean, what about these other witnesses? What are they saying? How do we know they're telling the truth? Et cetera, et cetera. I'll give you the latest example. Diddy's defense team proved that Diddy wasn't there. The defense actually provided receipts and asked the woman if he could be in two places at once they proved that he wasn't even in attendance at the time that she said this ordeal happened with them. And when they asked her that question, she said theoretically. I mean, what does that mean? How incriminating is that against her?
Yeah, that damages her testimony completely. He can't be in two places at once. And the defense even said that. Can he be in LA and be in New York at the same time? No. And that kind of opens and shuts the door on her. So that is huge for the defense. That's a big thing for the defense. And you have to believe the jurors, whether they think she outright made that up, or they think, hey, your story's got to be dubious. Maybe you had your dates different. Something doesn't add up here. You never want a witness on the stand saying one thing happened and then the other team getting up and saying, well, I can prove he was somewhere else. So, yes, it's damaging for prosecutors. But here's the thing. She was there to offer testimony about how he uses violence to intimidate people. Other people have offered that evidence. So for Diddy supporters out there who might say, hey, well, this is proof that he was never violent. I don't know if it's proof that he was never violent. I think maybe it's proof that he wasn't violent in the way this person described on that date. But Diddy still has a whole lot of things to push back on to say that he didn't use threats and coercion to get people to do the things he wanted them to do.
Today, the jury heard from Jane is her name, who testified that Combs threatened to stop paying for her apartment if she didn't continue the hotel nights, sleeping with other men for his pleasure. However, it was revealed, like you said, that Combs was going to break up with her, and she continued with the hotel nights. What do you make of that? She's going to break up with her, but she continued with the hotel nights anyway. Does that help his case at all?
It does in some ways, but it also helps the prosecution. Let me back up for everybody who hears Jane's testimony and starts reading it. What is important for prosecutors to prove here is a RICO conspiracy. That's a pattern that's basically saying, in a nutshell, that Diddy is either assisting in or operating this sort of criminal enterprise, that other people are involved, and it's this pattern of criminal activity. Now, I want people to hang on to the word pattern. We saw Cassie up there for days talking about what she did with her. He started dating her. They start going out. He offers her the recording contract. They start working together. And then he starts engaging her in these freak-offs, according to her, and starts using these threats and coercion, according to her, in terms of, hey, you got to keep doing this or I'm going to take things away. Now we see Jane talking about the same thing. Stephen A., this is why I believe Jane's testimony is some of the most impactful testimony we're going to see in this trial. Because she now is talking about exactly what Cassie was talking about, which makes it a pattern. So I know that people are going to say, well, look, she could have withdrawn herself from the freak-offs. But look at what she's saying as to why. She's saying, well, he started dating me, and then we had this relationship. Then part of the relationship became these other things that I had to do, these hotel nights. And then he would say, well, I'm going to take, according to her, I'm going to take this housing away. I'm going to take these things away. It's the same kind of thing. It's a pattern. And in a way, it requires jurors to look at this and say, these women were in a position where they didn't feel like they had a way out. And Stephen, let me touch on one other thing related to this. I think 20, 30 years ago, we might look at this case and say, well, why didn't someone just leave? Now we tend to look at these cases differently. We look at cases like R. Kelly and we see grooming. We see how people are conditioned into certain behavior, and then they start feeling like they can't leave situations. That's the case the prosecution is trying to build here. They're trying to show that Diddy is a person who strings people along, gets them in these relationships, gives them things, and then gets them in a situation that they feel they can't get out of, either by violence or coercion, financially or otherwise, and puts them in this untenable situation.
So is it possible, before I let you get on out of here, that the real thing that's incriminating with him is the age of these ladies at the time he started their relationships with them? I'm guessing that based on what you alluded to in terms of how society was in the past, they would say it was consensual. Why could you just walk away from the situation? And then you bring in the grooming element. Well, if you're somebody in your 30s or your 40s, somebody might not want to hear that. But if you're somebody in your teens and you started dating this gentleman, then obviously you're going to be perceived as being a bit more vulnerable. And as a result, he's going to be the person in a position of power who manipulated that power to take advantage of you. Is that a good way of, basically drawing a synopsis of all of this and really crystallizing this for the viewers out there?
I think it's part of it, but I don't think it's all of it. I think the fact that they were younger women may have made them a little bit more susceptible to his influence. I think his power dynamic plays into part of this, that a woman who's older could have also been swept into this power dynamic. And I think the way he conducted himself, at least according to the prosecution. But make no mistake, Stephen A., as you watch these people testify, like Jane, when she's talking about he had me take drugs across from LA to Miami. Now they're building the case of drug trafficking. When he talks about having her and then her later calling people, escorts, to come in from different places to do these hotel nights. Now we're talking about the sex trafficking element. What you're seeing here, when I talk about grooming, I'm talking about his MO, and they're trying to describe how he did this. But I think age, while being a part of it, is not all of it. I think what it is they're trying to describe how he got his hands into them, and then in their mind put them in a position where they couldn't get out. And that's how they're trying to build the RICO case, the sex trafficking case, the drug trafficking case. All of it is all based on him and his associates getting these people in a world that they couldn't get out of. And age is a part of that, but I don't think it's all of it.
Last question. We've seen so much and we hear so much, and it just appears to be getting more and more incriminating for Sean Diddy Combs by the day. But that's through the lens of the prosecution. When are we going to start seeing things through the lens of the defense team?
I think it's going to be at least a week. I think you can expect Jane to be on the stand for another couple days. And when you talk about the lens of the defense team, just like we saw with Cassie, we saw Cassie getting grilled on the stand by the defense. We heard about Mia getting grilled on the stand by the defense. It's going to be the same with Jane, because Jane has a lot of text messages going back and forth talking about their relationship. Jane talks about how she, over time, started booking the escorts herself. According to her, that was so she could control, at least know, the men that she would be kind of coerced into engaging in these hotel nights with. The defense is going to turn that, and they're going to say, look, but you're calling these experts. You're saying, are we doing this? And you can't later come back and say it was non-consensual because you were in this relationship with him for 3 years. As you said, Stephen, why didn't she get out? They're going to be questions like that the defense is going to press on, and they're going to press hard because the defense knows what's getting out there. The impression that Sean Diddy Combs controls these people, that he has a whole pattern of doing these things, that he uses all these associates to do these things, and that's the RICO conspiracy. They have to knock that down by essentially hitting on one key point. All of this was consensual, that he strongly denies all of this, and that all of this was what the women wanted to do and wanted to do with him. So the defense is going to get that chance when they cross-examine her. And I would say if that doesn't happen today, it's going to happen early next week, but it's going to be aggressive. It's going to be strong because that's exactly what they did with Cassie.
All right. That was another side to understanding more of the Diddy trial. Okay, thank you, Stephen A. Smith, for that update. We are cruising on down through the Diddy stuff. So let's find some more stuff going on in the Diddy trial. More perspective, more revelations. Who's saying what? You know, who is speculating the outcome of what's going on? From what's going on currently? Do you guys think the prosecutors are making their case against Diddy? I'm hearing some things, right, that could tie into some low level ends of stuff. Like, okay, he brought drugs. He gave me a pill. He had me transport, you know, a amount used for consumption, not distribution. And you see what I'm saying? So, like, with that being said, like I said in the thumbnail, is this a state case, or is Diddy in the right court? Is this for a state to try to, you know, should have tried to prosecute Diddy in, or is he in the right, you know what I'm saying, courtroom as far as like the case goes? He's in the feds right now. So let's keep on keeping on. Let's read some of the comments, actually. Some people are saying, bruh, witness Jane was in her early 30s when she started dating Diddy, and she was already getting $7,000 a month for her baby daddy. This woman know what she was getting into. She didn't want to give up that $10,000 a month Diddy was paying her. Even now, he is still paying her rent. She is not a victim, says Make It Make Sense 757. Okay. Day Nurse 80 replies to Make It Make Sense, saying, you think money is a good excuse to beat a woman, bro? You're ward. Okay. Plus, he told her from the jump, says Monica M3738, what was he going to be? What it was going to be. And Diddy is still paying her rent. She thought this was more than what it was. She was his kept freak. Morally, he guilt trips her to participating, but it's not a crime. Plus, Banner was caught lying about the balcony incident. So that would be the friend of Cassie. That's where Diddy's trying to get the trial, you know, going to mistrial, however have you. Okay. She told Diddy, I don't want to do it anymore. He told her, okay, I'm going to pay your rent for the next 3 months and then it's over. Because I'm not going to keep paying your rent if we're not together. She could have said, okay, and got a job. Instead, Diddy is still paying her rent to this day. She's not a victim, says Day Nurse 80. Facts, says Dave Curry, 3153. And then I was going to also spill some tea on that as well. So, like, as far as, you know what I'm saying, like, her being a baby mama, you see what I'm saying? It's like, my goodness gracious. You see what I'm saying? All of this salacious, nymphomaniac, actorial freak acts that are occurring, you know what I'm saying, between Diddy. Like, where are the kids at? I'm wondering, is this 50 Cent's baby mama? Like, remember 50 Cent's baby mama was tied into doing some freak off things with Diddy. I'm wondering who this Jane Doe is. Do y'all think it's 50 Cent's baby mama? I don't know. Okay. But we do know of her having one child, and then, you know, Diddy and 50 Cent, of course, having their feud, you know, their hate for each other. And she testified that Diddy would like talk about her baby daddy being a rapper. You see what I'm saying? Is the Jane Doe that's testifying right now, is it 50 Cent's baby mama? Okay. I'm just, you know, spilling that tea. So let's keep on reading the comments. I think Diddy was too afraid of what 50 might do if he heard he was beating on his baby mama. Thank you. Like, I'm thinking that this is 50 Cent's baby mama that's testifying right now. That's the Jane Doe right now. Even though she will be back on the stand Monday, so we probably hear something about violence towards her. You see what I'm saying? Like, why would he be talking about her rapper baby daddy she got one baby with, which could potentially be 50 Cent? Okay. So let's keep it going. And do you hear the way that, my goodness gracious, Diddy, if this is 50 Cent's baby mama, was somewhere just freak nastying with her, you know, having her sleep with 3, 4, 5 different men a night for Diddy just to pay her $10,000 rent? Like, that is crazy to even think. was something that unfortunately 50 Cent's baby mama was, doing to keep a roof over her and 50 Cent's child's head, right? Because didn't 50 Cent say, have a baby with me and I'll make you a millionaire, or some shit he was saying in the song, right? So one would come to wonder why she would need to sleep with 4 or 5 different men a night just to keep a roof over her and 50 Cent's son's head. That is wild. More comments. So you're just repeating what you heard everyone else say. If Diddy is so dangerous, then why would he be afraid of what 50 might do? Like I said, so far we have yet to hear that Diddy was beating on Daphne, even if he was doing so. She had to do was leave like she came. Okay, that can make sense. Says, actually, in the court filing, they do document a time when Diddy was violent with Jane. I'm sure we will hear about it on Tuesday. Michael Parker 2678 says, instead of constantly going after Diddy and his defense team, Ryan Smith needs to go after his legally blind barber for giving him that outrageous haircut. I cannot stand him. Okay. Y'all worry about him nodding at the jury. Where's the RICO evidence? Right. Says Fresh No Designer 1982. Shout out to 1982. Gregory email 1 says, damn, I know this is about Diddy, but his barber did him so wrong. They get on my nerves. Okay. A couple more comments. We're going to get back into some Diddy watching. Okay. Whatever happened to personal responsibility? These women could have left at any time and just left Diddy alone. But no, they wanted him to continue paying their bills and keeping up their lifestyle. I don't need to hear any more testimony. So, I mean, I understand how they are wanting everybody to take it into account of how, bad women syndrome can, consist of a lot of different ways that a man can control a woman, like where she can be in like, okay, you guys know how you can be scared of something and it'll leave you in like a fear, panic stricken. Like if you watch something scary and you're stuck, and you're like, oh my God, I'm scared to move type situation. I mean, I can understand how they are wanting the jury and, the public opinion, us to, take it in and understand, especially if you have ever been a victim of any type of abuse in any way. You see what I'm saying? What were your reasons why you allowed that abuse to happen for longer than the second that it occurred in? You see what I'm saying? For whatever reason, you stayed over a second after the abuse occurred. There are a lot of reasons. Women, anybody can be necessarily scared from any point in time of life where, you know what I'm saying? If you're not the person that is actually going out and bringing back the bacon, and you don't necessarily understand exactly where, when you step out on faith, if you step out without the person that's feeding you, how you're going to acquire your next meal, that can prevent you from wanting to step out on your own, right? So if Diddy's paying their bills, and I don't know, what type of women that they are personally. I'm listening to them, theoretically, how, they were living their lifestyles. A lot of it does seem like, they wanted the luxurious end of the lifestyle. With Diddy, they didn't want to go, have to be on Section 8 or low income, or have to try to find, a way to survive, have a roof over their head, and, go work at a diner or something. They wanted to take the way, or chose, however you looking at this, right, for Diddy to continue to foot the freight of their life. So, I mean, and I think that the abuse came into it because Diddy's just that type of nigga. You see what I'm saying? I think Diddy's just that type of nigga where he, had a father that was in the drug business, and one of the most dangerous drug enforcers in New York City when Diddy was a child. Wasn't that Frank Lucas? His dad used to be the driver or runner or somebody close to Frank Lucas, right, in New York City. So, imagine the lifestyle that Diddy started to come up in. You see what I'm saying? And things that, you know, he was around, saw, you know, things like that. So Diddy took a more of a somewhat of a guerrilla, you know, stepping on your throat type of, you know, approach when it came to life, right? So, you know, I believe that whenever, you know, Diddy's nymphomaniacs, Cassie and the Jane Does and all these women that were so willingly eager to, you know, sleep with however many men Diddy brought into the freak offs, however have you, if they gave him some type of backlash from it, or, you know, not wanting to do it, manner, Diddy, you know, reverted back to what he knew his daddy, you know, was in and was around, and people in his life, and coming down through, so forth and so carrying on. You see what I'm saying? To where he would put his foot on a bitch's neck. So, you know what I'm saying? I don't necessarily think that this was just like something that, it was like, oh, you know, Diddy is, you know, just a violent, because so far I'm not seeing violent sex trafficker. Okay. However, I will say that, you know what I'm saying, Diddy is a monster in that sense. You see what I'm saying? To where if things don't go his way, he will try to put his foot up your ass. Okay. And unfortunately, these are things that these women were, you know, unfortunately introduced to. Diddy gave him a proposal of, you know, I will do this, I will give you this, I will make sure this is completely taken care of. You won't have to worry about anything other than being accountable for when I say you need to be accounted for to do these acts of X services. Okay. Kind of like a bunny ranch type of situation, except, you know, Diddy enforced it with, you know, somewhat violence and coercion, as far as like, okay, so you're not going to hold up your end of the bargain. He, like, this is what I got from the testimony that I heard, or not, the audio that I heard of Diddy saying, right? I'm doing my job, which is paying your rent, taking care of you. When your rapper boyfriend 50, baby daddy 50 Cent, obviously is not, you know, keeping your rent paid or doing whatever he's supposed to be doing, as far as, you know, I'm seeing shit. I'm in place now, you know what I'm saying? Where where 50 Cent should have been, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? However, all I do know is that 50 Cent can be a little bit.
Thanks for watching. Remember to show your support by liking, subscribing, and sharing. It's a blessing. Keep your teacups filled and ready for my next upload. Until then, stay inspired, and remember, always stay dipping.